Welcome to my How Healthy Are You weekly educational podcast. My name is Dr. Thomas Brewer. I'm a PhD chemist and nutritional blood microscopist. For those of you that call in to hear this recording, this will be number 77. Okay, so there are a number of questions I'll be going over for this podcast, and I appreciate all the questions that have been coming in because you're not the only ones that want the answers to these questions. I'm sure a lot of people are interested in similar questions to have answered. So last week I had talked about the use of calcium and what's really happening when you have a bunion. And there were some follow-up questions from that. One was about osteoporosis and osteopenia, and it's pretty much the same thing. It's a calcium deficiency. The body gets the calcium from the bones. So usually bunions start first, and then the osteoporosis and osteopenia follows. That's because the body was getting calcium from the bones and took too much. It went down to the feet with gravity. So bunions and osteopenia and osteoporosis, they tend to go hand in hand, kind of like diabetes and pancreas problems. So diabetes and indigestion tend to go hand in hand, or at least the inability to digest proteins. They tend to follow each other. So another question relating to last week's talk on bunions and calcium was, what else can happen if you take the wrong kind of calcium? And what happens is calcium builds up on the arteries. Medical doctors call plaque calcification, and plaque is a mixture of LDL cholesterol, calcium, your own blood platelets, bacteria, fats and oils, all hardening. So if you're consuming the wrong kind of calcium, which is typically mineral-based, so this would be calcium carbonate, you can get calcium to build up on your arteries, and so that's plaque. Well, just like having a bunion, you would think, oh, I have calcification, I should decrease my calcium intake, and that's what this question was about. The answer is no. You need to take the right kind of calcium so that the calcium stops going to your arteries and stops depositing on your arteries and goes to your bones, where it can be utilized. So both cases, you need the right kind of calcium. That's plant-based, so it's either green vegetables, and on the days you're not eating a lot of green vegetables like cucumber and broccoli and leafy greens, you would take the Coral Life Coral Calcium, typically 3 a day, very common dose. The next question was about autoimmune disorders and in general what they mean and what people can do and medications they can take. So an autoimmune disorder is when our immune system is awry, broken, not working right, doing something it's not supposed to do. And when this happens, we end up with the various autoimmune diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, but there are many other autoimmune disorders, and they're pretty debilitating. And the standard Western medication, Western medicine solution is to decrease the activity of the immune system. At first you would think, well, that's logical. My immune system is attacking me. I will decrease the activity of my immune system. Wrong. That's not what I said. I said the immune system is broken. It's doing what it's not supposed to do. That doesn't mean it's strong. That doesn't mean it needs to be weakened. What it has to be is fixed. So the medication for autoimmune disorders are immune system suppressants. They're suppressing the immune system. Well, who said the immune system was strong and active and healthy to begin with? I mean, why would you suppress any function in the body? That just doesn't make sense. So the way I look at autoimmune disorders is just what they are. The immune system is broken, and we want to fix the immune system, not by suppressing it, by just fixing it. And so a big part of the immune system is our white blood cells, and we want our white blood cells to be functioning properly. So we will feed them what they want, which are sterolins and glucosides, and these are found in the Steromax product. And there is no better sterolin product on the market. In fact, I believe the next best sterolin product is 1% as active as the Steromax I carry. So typically autoimmune disorders will be, or at least people with them will be prescribed antibiotics, steroids. All of them are essentially Band-Aids. They will work on a symptom, and I have nothing against pretty much any pharmaceutical product short term, especially if you need symptomatic relief. But you've got to be working on the solution while you're taking the medication. The medication is not a solution. It's not designed to be a solution. It's essentially going to help you survive while you're figuring out the solution. And if you take medications the rest of your life, by definition, they are toxic to your liver. They're not food. You know, food isn't toxic to our liver, but medications and pretty much anything that isn't food is toxic to our liver, and that's why we all have to do these really strong detoxes all the time, like the lemon water and the celery juice. It's just got to be a way of life because we expose our body to a lot of toxins. And if we take medication, it's just another example. And autoimmune disorders, any other issue where you're prescribed medication, it will give a purpose, it'll provide a purpose, it'll give you symptomatic relief, but they were never designed to heal, cure, get rid of the problem. Never designed to do that. So there was another question regarding autoimmune disorders and saying that does my approach work if you're taking the immune suppressants? Well, the answer is yes. You can take immune suppressants and also fix your immune system at the same time with the Steromax. Usually also part of your immune system is you're going to need probiotics. So white blood cells and probiotic bacteria make up a big part of our immune system. But yes, you can take those while you're taking the other medication. And the whole point is to not need the medication. So as you do something that heals you, well, then at some point you don't need the medication. And that's just a smart way to go about healing. Another question we had was on something called the carnivore diet. So most of you know that I advocate a way of burning fat, losing weight by default, what's called a slow carb diet or slow carbohydrate diet or slow burn carbohydrate diet or a low glycemic index carbohydrate diet. And basically 6 days a week you only get your carbohydrates from vegetables, and it's just moderate amounts of protein and fat. There's really nothing unique there. And then on the seventh day, you can get your carbohydrates any way you want, donuts, pizza, whatever. And so the question came up about the carnivore diet. Well, the carnivore diet is somewhat unique because you're basically only eating meat. And at first glance, you would think, well, that's really bad, and that can't work. Well, a lot of people have done this carnivore diet, especially related to what I just spoke about, people with autoimmune disorders. And in many cases, their autoimmune disorders went away. Well, that brought up a question from people, well, how can that work? It turns out that the so-called healthy fruits and vegetables, which I always advocate, where you tend to more plant-based, more natural foods, you can be allergic to those. In fact, many people are allergic to something, and that's why I have the food allergy test. So I offer a food allergy test, and I can even mail the kit out to people that are interested. But it's always good to know what you're allergic to, and some people have these severe allergies to fruits and vegetables, especially vegetables, and when they try to eat right, everything gets bad. They get a lot of inflammation, and their immune system starts attacking them because it thinks of these foods as invaders. So then when they switch to the carnivore diet, they're not having any fruits and vegetables. You'd think that's horrible, but then their autoimmune disorder goes away. Now, the carnivore diet isn't something you would normally do the rest of your life, and it's hard to believe it even works, but it does work. So there was an interesting podcast about this by Joe Rogan, and he's a pretty successful guy. You might remember him from Fear Factor, which was a TV show. He's also an announcer for the UFC, and I've worked a lot with the UFC. And in one of his podcasts, he was talking about the carnivore diet, and he did it himself. And it was a pretty graphic description because the first thing you go through the first week or two is very, very bad diarrhea. And so it was a big joke on his podcast, about his bowel movements. But after that, his stools hardened up, and it was just amazing how he felt being on that diet. Now, he didn't stay on it, and he didn't do it because he has an autoimmune disorder. He was really curious how something that really doesn't make sense compared to mainstream thinking about trying to go more plant-based, you just do the complete opposite. All you eat is meat. But it tends to be very good for people with an autoimmune disorder. And often these autoimmune disorders, like I said, your immune system's broken. It's not doing what it's supposed to do. It's in an overly agitated state. Often that's due to us being allergic to foods that, well, we shouldn't be allergic to them, but we are. And you take those foods out of your diet for a while. It's typically a month or more, and then that autoimmune disorder goes away. So something to think about, something to consider if you have any of the autoimmune disorders like lupus and rheumatoid arthritis. The final question is about probiotics and improved probiotic delivery system. So what you'll often hear is, how can probiotics work when they have to get past the stomach acid? Doesn't that kill the probiotics? Great question, because the answer is yes, it does. That is why I tell people, don't be so concerned about the billions and billions of probiotics that are listed on these bottles, because if they don't have some sort of a delivery system that allows the probiotic to get past the stomach acid, then the billions and billions become not millions, but thousands. Most of those probiotics die during delivery, and we want those probiotics, at least most of them, to get to our small intestine and large intestine and colon. There are some probiotics that work in the stomach. It's a very common one called acidophilus. That one works in the stomach. But the others, we really want them to get past the stomach. So someone had sent me a product with a very nice, technologically advanced probiotic delivery system. And the question is, what do I think? I think great. That is good. And most probiotics have no delivery system. Now, it turns out the probiotics I carry also have a delivery system. It is a patented process, and it is essentially something that the manufacturer does not like to talk about or disclose, and it's been around a while, and he figured out a way for the probiotics to get past the stomach acid. And people often ask, why are your probiotics so good? How come you don't sell your probiotics based on the billions and billions of probiotics, yet yours work so much better than these products with 50 billion and 100 billion? And I don't know how high the numbers are going. It seems like they're making up numbers because the capsule is the same size. And 10 years ago, these same manufacturers were selling products in the millions, and now all of a sudden they're in the billions. But the reason the ones I sell and this one that was emailed to me is because of the delivery system. And usually manufacturers, when they have a product with a good delivery system, they don't need to sell based on billions and billions of probiotics, because the product makes it where it needs to be and multiplies. And that's what mine do. The probiotics I sell make it past the stomach, and they multiply. So there's a prebiotic in there called FOS, which stands for fructooligosaccharides, and that is the food source or the prebiotic for the probiotics. And when you have that whole package, the probiotics multiply, and that's how you end up in the billions and billions and trillions, is when the probiotics are able to multiply. So it was a great question, because the delivery system is what separates good probiotics from bad ones. It's not the trillions and billions and whatever the numbers are nowadays. It's really about that delivery system. Now, the other thing is you have to look at the different strains of probiotics in the product. And I have a YouTube video that talks about this, but you want essentially a few key probiotic strains. One of them is called L. salivarius. That is the Hercules of the probiotics. It's the strongest. And so you want your product to at least have as one of the probiotic strains that L. salivarius. And another very good active strain that multiplies in the intestines is bifidum, and a third one is plantarum. Now, there are many more, and each strain of probiotic will serve a different purpose. And that's why I always tell people, even though my probiotics are great, I don't mind if you switch back and forth between another great probiotic, because as long as the strains are different, then you'll get a benefit. I also do carry a second probiotic, but it's a powder. It's really designed to go into smoothies or in drinks for children. So it's very good for children to get probiotics. So, all right, that's all I have for this podcast. I will be doing another podcast next week. Thank you for the questions. And as always, thanks for listening.